Hello friends, today we discuss life cycle of rickshaw or bryophyte, classification of rickshaw, division Bryophyta, class Epitecopsida, order Marchantius, family Rickshaceae and genus Rixia. Distribution and habitat of Rixia. Rixia is the most widely distributed genus of family Rickshaceae, is represented by about 200 species. The name Rixia was given in honor of P. F. Rixiae, a Florentine politician and scientist. Widely distributed in both tropical and temperate regions of the world, this genus is represented in India by about 33 species. However, Srivastav in 1964 recorded 29 species from different parts of India. All species are terrestrial and prefer to grow on moist and shady places except Rixia fluitans, which is an aquatic species and occurs floating in still stagnant water or submerged below the surface of standing water. Indian common terrestrial species are RH, Rixia gangetica, Rixia discolor, Rixia himalayensis, Rixia glauca, Rixia crystalline, Rixia frosti, Rixia hirsuta and Rixia melanospora. Rixia gangetica, Rixia kashypai and Rixia pandei are endemic species, that means confined to particular Indian territory only. Now gametophytic phase. The plant body of Rixia is gametophytic and gametophytes are fleshy, prostrate and dichotomously branched. Repeated dichotomousy results into a typically rosette-like appearance. In Rixia cruciata, only two dichotomy result in a cruciate form. Each branch of the thallus is linear, wedge-shaped or obcordate. Thallus is 5 to 7 mm long and 1.2 mm broad in all the terrestrial species. However, in Rixia fluitans, it is 30 to 50 mm long and 1 to 2 mm broad. Dorsal surface. The dorsal surface is light green or dark green body, each branch having a thick midrib. It is traversed by a conspicuous median longitudinal groove which ends in a depression at the apical region, forming an apical notch. Growing point is situated in the apical notch. The main function of the mid dorsal groove is to retain water required for fertilization. Some hairy epidermal outgrowths are also seen in Rixia melanospora. Ventral surface. The ventral surface of thallus bears many scales and rhizoids. Scales are violet colored, multicellular and one-celled thick structures. The color of the scale is due to dissolution of the pigment in the cell sap. Scales are arranged all along the margin in a single row. In the apical region, they project forward, and in Hygrophilus species, the scales are ephemeral, means short lived, but in Xerophilus species the scales are leafy and persistent. In Rixia crystallina the scales are inconspicuous and absent. Rhizoids are unicellular and unbranched. They develop as prolongations of the lower epidermal cells. Rhizoids are of two types, smooth walled rhizoids and tuberculated rhizoids. In smooth walled rhizoid, both the inner and outer wall layers are fully stretched, while in tuberculated rhizoids, the inner wall layer modifies into peg-like or plate-like in growth, which projects into the cell lumen. The main function of the rhizoids is to anchor the thallus on the substratum and to absorb water and mineral nutrients from the soil. In Rixia fluitans, the only aquatic species, thallus is long, narrow, ribbon-like and dichotomously branched. Rhizoids and scales are absent. This species can also grow on soil. In terrestrial species, thallus bears many rhizoids and small colorless or violet scales near the apex. Now, anatomy of the gametophyte. A vertical cross section of the thallus show two distinct zones, upper photosynthetic zone and lower storage zone. First, upper photosynthetic zone, it is green, dorsal on upper region of the thallus. It is made of somewhat vertical rows of unbranched photosynthetic filaments. All the cells of the photosynthetic filament except the uppermost one are isodiametric and possess many discoid chloroplasts. The terminal cells of photosynthetic filaments are large, hyaline and form loose, ill-defined and discontinuous one-celled thick epidermis. Photosynthetic filaments are separated from each other by narrow longitudinal vertical canals called air chambers. Each air chamber is bounded by 4 epidermal cells in Rixia glauca or 8 epidermal cells in Rixia vesiculosa. Each air chamber opens on the dorsal surface by an air pore. Air chambers species help in the gaseous exchange. In aquatic form of Rixia fluitans, epidermis is continuous and air chambers are almost completely closed. However, in the terrestrial form of this species, each air chamber opens on the upper surface by a small opening. In spongy thallus of Rixia crystallina, the assimilatory or photosynthetic cells form a loosely arranged network enclosing large air spaces. Now, lower storage zone. This zone represents the ventral tissue of the thallus and lies below the photosynthetic zone. It consists of compactly arranged parenchymatous cells. These cells are devoid of chlorophyll and contain starch as reserve food material. The lowermost cell layer of this zone forms the lower epidermis. Some cells of lower epidermis extend to form the scales and pod type of rhizoids. Reproduction in Rixia. Rixia reproduces by vegetative and sexual modes of vegetative reproduction. Vegetative reproduction in Rixia is quite common and takes place by the following methods: death and decay of the older portion of the thallus. The thallus in Rixia is dichotomously branched and the growing point is situated in its apical notch. The basal or the posterior part of the thallus starts rotting or disintegrating due to aging or drought. When this process of disintegration or decay reaches up to the place of dichotomy, the lobes of the thallus get separated. Thus, detached lobes develop into independent plants by apical growth. It is the most common method to vegetative reproduction in Rixia. The adventitious branches develop from the ventral surface of the thallus in species like Rixia fluitans. On being detained, these branches develop into new thalli. Due to prolonged dry summer or towards the end of growing season, the whole thallus in some species like in Rixia discolor dries and gets destroyed except the growing point. Later, it grows into the soil and becomes thick. Under favorable conditions, it develops into a new thallus. It is more a method of perennation rather than multiplication. Now, bitubers. Towards the end of growing season, the apices of the thallus lobes gets thickened and form the perennating tubers. These are capable to pass on the unfavorable conditions. On resumption of favorable conditions, tubers produce new thalli. Tubers are common in Rixia discolor, Rixia ballardieri, Rixia perennaris and Rixia vesicata. Now, by rhizoids. The apical part of the young rhizoids divides and redivides to form a gamma-like mass of cells in some species, that is in Riccia glauca. These cells contain chloroplast and are capable of developing into new thallus. Sexual reproduction in Riccia. Sexual reproduction in Riccia is oogamous type. Male reproductive bodies are known as Antheridia and female as Archegonia. Some species of Riccia like Riccia crystallina, Riccia gangetica, Riccia billardieri and Riccia glauca are monoecious or homothallic. It means both Antheridia and Archegonia develop on the same thallus, while other species like Riccia christii, Riccia personae, Riccia bischoffii, Riccia frosti, Riccia discolor are dioecious or heterothallic. It means Antheridia and Archegonia develop on different thalli. Antheridia and Archegonia remain enclosed within the antheridial and archegonial chambers and develop on the dorsal surface of the thallus. Sex organs develop in acropetal succession. That means mature sex organs are present at the posterior end and the younger ones towards the apex of the thallus. In monoecious species, alternate groups of Antheridia and Archegonia develop at a sufficient distance from the growing point. There is no particular time for the development of sex organs, and therefore one can see all the developmental stages in the different sections of the same thalli. Now, development of Antheridium. The development of Antheridium starts from a superficial antheridial cell situated on the dorsal surface of the thalli. It is a few 2 to 3 cells away from the apical cell. The antheridial initial enlarges in size, becomes papillate and divides first by a transverse division to form an upper outer cell and a lower basal cell. Basal cell remains embedded in the tissue of thallus, undergoes only a little further development and forms the embedded portion of the antheridial stalk. Outer cell divides by transverse division to form a filament of 4 cells. Upper 2 cells of the 4-celled filament are known as primary antheridial cells and lower 2 cells are known as primary stalk cells. Primary stalk cells form the stalk of the antheridium. Primary antheridial cells divide by the 2 successive vertical divisions at right angle to each other to form 2 tiers of 4 cells each. A periclinal division is laid down in both the tiers of 4 cells and there is the formation of 8 outer strial jacket initials and 8 inner primary androgonial cells. Jacket initials divide by several anticlinal divisions to form a single layer of antheridial jacket. Primary androgonial cells divide by several repeated transverse and vertical divisions, resulting in the formation of large number of small cubical androgonial cells. The last generation of the androgonial cells is known as androcyte mother cell. Spermatogenesis. The process of metamorphosis of androcyte mother cells into antherzoids is known as spermatogenesis. It completes within a few minutes. Each androcyte mother cell divides by a diagonal mitotic division to form 2 triangular cells called androcytes. Both the androcytes remain enclosed in the wall of the androcyte mother cell and with one separate wall. Each androcyte has a prominent nucleus and a small extranuclear granule called blepharoplast. It lies near the periphery of the protoblast. The androcyte soon loses its triangular shape and becomes somewhat round or oval. Its blepharoplast elongates into a cord and occupies about 2/3 of its part. Simultaneously, the nucleus also becomes crescent shaped, homogeneous and ultimately comes in contact with the blepharoplast. 2 large flagella develop from the conspicuously thickened end of the blepharoplast. A small part of the cytoplasm which is not utilized in the formation of flagella may remain attached to the posterior end of antherozoid as a small vesicle. Each androcyte thus metamorphoses into an antherozoid. Now, dehiscence. Water helps in the dehiscence of the antheridium. Antheridial chamber in which an antheridium lies communicates with the closal surface of the thallus by a terminal opening. The cell walls form the semi-fluid content of the antheridium during the metamorphosis. Mature antherozoids remain free in the semi-fluid substance in the antheridial cavity. As water enters into the antheridial chamber, the sterile apical cells of the antheridial jacket, enlarged by absorbing water, become softened and ultimately break open. The mature antherozoids, along with semi-fluid moss, come out from the antheridium to the antheridial chamber and then to the dorsal surface of the thallus. Now, the development of archegonium. It starts on the dorsal surface of the thallus from a single superficial cell, which acts as an archegonial initial. This initial enlarges, becomes papillate and first divides transversely into a basal cell and an outer cell. There is no further division in the basal cell and it forms the embedded portion of the archegonium. The entire archegonium develops from the outer cell. This outer cell divides by 3 successive intersecting walls or periclinal vertical walls, resulting in the formation of 3 peripheral initials and a 4th median cell. The primary axial cell. Each of the 3 peripheral initials divides by an anticlinal vertical division, forming 2 cells. In this way, the primary axial cells gets surrounded by 6 cells. These cells are called jacket initials. 6 jacket initials divide transversely into upper neck initials tier and lower ventral initial tier. Neck initial tier divides by repeated transverse divisions to form a tube-like neck. Neck of the archegonium consists of 6 vertical rows and each row consists 6 to 9 cells. Ventral initial tier also divides by repeated transverse divisions to form a single layer of swollen venter. Simultaneously, the primary axial small cell divides transversely and unequally to form small upper primary cover cell and large lower ventral cell. The central cell divides into an upper primary neck canal cell and a lower ventral cell. Primary neck canal cell divides by a series of transverse divisions to form 4 neck canal cells. Primary ventral cell divides only once and forms a small ventral canal cell and a large egg. The primary cover cell divides by 2 vertical divisions at right angle to one another, forming 4 cover cells which form the mouth of the archegonium. A mature archegonium is a flask shaped structure. It remains attached to the thallus by a short stalk. It consists of upper elongated slender neck and basal globular portion called venter. The neck consists of 6 vertical rows enclosing 4 neck canal cells. The venter consists of a single layered jacket. 12 to 20 cells in the perimeter enclose a small ventral canal cell and a large egg. 4 cover cells are present at the top of the neck. Now, fertilization in Riccia. Water is essential for fertilization process. It enters into the antheridial chamber. Apical cells of the antheridial wall get swollen by absorbing water. These cells become softened and finally break down to release mass of antherozoid. The antherozoids come up to dorsal surface of the thallus from the antheridial chamber, where they swim in the thin film of water and reach to the mouth of the neck of the archegonium. In the mature archegonium, the ventral canal cell and neck canal cell disintegrate and form a mucilaginous mass. It absorbs water, swells up and comes out of the archegonial mouth by pushing the cover cells apart. This mucilaginous mass consists of chemical substances such as soluble proteins and certain inorganic salts of potassium. Many antherzoids enter into the archegonial neck because of the chemotactic response and reach up to the egg. One of the antherzoid penetrates to the egg and fertilization is effected. The fusion of the nuclei of male and female gamete results in the formation of diploid zygote or oospore. Fertilization ends in the gametophytic phase. Now, germination of spores and formation of young gametophyte. Spores are very small, 0.05 to 0.12 millimeter in diameter. They are haploid, uninucleate and pyramidal in shape. Each spore remains surrounded by 3 layers, that is an outermost ornamental cutinized layer called exosporium, the middle layer called mesosporium and the innermost layer called the endosporium. The endosporium is made up of cellulose and pectose. Light, low temperature and water is essential for spore germination. The exosporium and mesosporium rupture at the triradiate mark and the endosporium comes out in the form of a tubular outgrowth called the germinal tube. Germinal tube is filled with cytoplasm which contains albumin granules, chloroplasts and oil granules. The germ tube elongates rapidly to form a club shaped structure because the content of the cytoplasm move to the distal end. At the end, it divides by a transverse division to form a small cell. It again divides by a transverse division which is parallel to first division. Both these cells divide by 2 vertical divisions at right angle to one another and form 2 tiers of 4 cells each. This represents octant stage. The distal tier of 4 cells of the octant stage functions as an apical cell with 2 cutting faces. It cuts a number of cells on its left and right side to form the multicellular thallus. Along with these divisions, the first rhizoid develops at the base of the germ tube. Many rhizoids develop later on from the multicellular thallus and fix it on the soil. Rhizoids develop in the light intensity. In Rixia christii, 2 spores of a tetrad develop into male thalli and 2 spores develop into female thalli. This is the picture showing life cycle of Rixia, gametophytic phase and sporophytic phase. Thank you.